Hello everyone, welcome. So today we will be discussing about um, a topic which is menstrual cycle. So we have already learned about what is the sexual reproductive organs of male as well as female. So after looking into that, we will now be focusing on to the menstrual cycle. This happens when? So, this happens in the female reproductive system. Egg is being produced. The ovum is being produced at the ovary, and we told you that sperm will be entering through the vagina and fertilization would be taking place. Now, fertilization doesn't take place always, but whereas ovum is released after each and every cycle. So we have it is a periodic matter that goes ahead and the ovum is being released. But until and unless it gets a sperm, fertilization would not take place. There might be various other reasons also why fertilization is not taking place. So during those times, what happened? So during this phase, my uterus gets ready to get the zygote or get the fetus. Whereas when it does not receive the fetus, what happens? It releases out, it breaks down and it releases out along with some amount of blood. This is known as menstruation. So the whole cycle that we have here, it is known as menstrual cycle. So herein, if I say what is menstrual cycle? Menstrual cycle is nothing but the reproductive cycle in females. This is called menstrual cycle. Okay, so this menstrual cycle is divided into 4 phases. Menstruation, then we have the follicular phase, then we have ovulation and luteal phase. See, if I say about the names, it is very clear what are the things. Menstruation means release of the blood that is happening. Follicular phase means what? At this point of time, follicles are being produced. Okay, so we have already talked about how maturation of follicles take place from primary follicles to the secondary follicles, tertiary follicles, and mature to Graafian follicle, which actually has the ovum to be released. Now, once the follicles are is ready, the ovum is to be released, I get into the ovulation phase. Then, once the ovum is released, then we have the luteal phase. I'll be coming to that one by one, each phases. So the reproductive phase of a human life, we have first the initial stage at which menstrual cycle starts. That is known as menarche. It's the beginning of the menstrual cycle. It usually happens from 11 to 12 years. Then from 12 to almost 50 years, we have the menstruation that takes place. And the age at which the menstruation would stop, the body would stop, having the menstrual cycle. It's at 50 years, and this is known as menopause. Okay. So the difference between menarche and menopause is what? Menarche is the first menstrual period or start of the menstruation, whereas menopause is the end of menstrual period or menstruation in human females. Menarche is from 11 to 16 years, whereas menopause is 45 to 50 years. Menarche is the beginning of the reproductive phase of female, whereas menopause is the end of the reproductive phase of a female. In the menarche, you have an elevated estrogen, whereas menopause, you have a declined estrogen. Estrogen starts reducing. For menarche, you have symptoms like irritability, moodiness, acne, irregularity in periods are seen. Whereas in menopause, what is happening? Lack of sleep, weight gain, hair loss, skin dryness, all those are the symptoms of menopause. Now coming to each and every cycle separately. First, let us start with the menstrual phase. In the menstrual phase, the menstruation is for 28 days of a cycle. It's a complete cycle that takes place. And in 28 days of menstrual cycle, the menses takes place in the cycle for 3 to 5 days. The production of LH, that is luteinizing hormone from the anterior lobe of pituitary gland, is reduced. So luteinizing hormone during this phase, it is reduced. And the withdrawal of this hormone causes degeneration of corpus luteum, and therefore progesterone production is reduced. Production of estrogen is also reduced in this phase. So all the hormones are in a declining phase. The endometrium of the uterus break down and menstruation begins. The cells of endometrium, secretion and blood and unfertilized ovum constitutes the menstrual flow. So here now I have the flow. Once the menstruation cycle is over, now I come to the follicular phase. Now again I'm starting with the next phase of the cycle. So if I talk about the next phase of the cycle, it is from 16 to 13 or 14 days, the cycle will go on. Okay, so herein what happens? The follicle stimulating hormone, which is secreted by the anterior lobe of the pituitary gland, it stimulates the ovarian follicle to secrete estrogen. Now, estrogen will stimulate the proliferation of endometrium or the uterine wall. So, what happens? Uterine wall will now slowly start to thicken. The endometrium becomes thicker by rapid cell multiplication, and this is accompanied by an increase in a uterine gland and blood vessels. So, during this phase, as I told you, the follicle development is going to take place. So when I said you there are primary follicles which are being developed, which is covered by various cells, and then this causes the primary follicle. Then there is a secondary follicle, and then it has a tertiary follicle, and which matures into a Graafian follicle, which has the ovum in it. Slowly, then the ovum gets released. Once the ovum gets released, what happens? Once the ovum gets released, we enter the ovulation phase. So this is a phase the when the body is ready for any kind of ovulation, and the LH and FSH hormones, that are luteinizing hormones and follicle stimulating hormone, they are at peak in this level. So it is about on the 14th day we are on the ovulation. Estrogen concentration in the blood also is more, and there's a rapid secretion of LH, which induces rupturing of the Graafian follicle and thereby release of the ovum. So, for who releases the ovum? It is with the LH, which induces the rupturing of the Graafian follicle. In fact, LH causes ovulation, luteinizing hormone. Okay. So now after that, what happens? Once the ovum is being released, that is 15 to 28th day, ovum is being released. Now whatever is the left behind, so the Graafian follicle, once the ovum, the small part inside the Graafian follicle is being released, the rest is remaining. So this remaining part will constitute what? It will constitute the corpus luteum. Corpus luteum, the waist. Okay, the corpus luteum is, this secretes progesterone, and the endometrium, it will thicken, and the uterine gland becomes secretory. So now the uterine gland, so this is also known as secretory phase. Whereas if I talk about the follicular phase, this is known as proliferation phase, whereas luteal phase is known as secretion phase. Now coming to how the hormones will start behaving in the menstrual cycle. So FSH stimulates ovarian follicles to produce estrogen. Now LH, it will stimulate the corpus luteum to secrete progesterone. In the menstrual cycle, it is caused due to production. So there are various hormones. See, first if I talk about the endometrium gland, sorry, it's in the endometrium, which is inside the uterus, it will slowly start thickening. Once the menstruation is over, then from the follicular phase to ovulation to the luteal phase, the endometrium will slowly start thickening. Now coming to, if I talk about the ovary, in the ovary what is happening? There is the release of the egg and then there is a collapse. Once the collapse is happening, then again the follicles, they will start producing. In the ovulation, there is a follicle will rupture and then Graafian follicle will rupture and ovum will be released and then corpus luteum will be formed in the luteal phase. If I talk about gonadotrophin hormones, what are the two gonadotrophin hormones? Luteinizing hormones and follicle stimulating hormone. Luteinizing hormone and follicle stimulating hormone, they are very much minimalized, decreased during the menstrual phase, and after that, when it enters into the follicular phase, it will slowly increase, and at the time of ovulation, it is at the highest peak, and then after that, it will start reducing. Again, another hormone which helps us during this phase is the ovarian hormone. Which are the ovarian hormone? It is estrogen and progesterone. So progesterone is very much minimal till ovulation. And then after that, estrogen will slowly keep increasing after the menstruation. To ovulation, it will increase. So this is happening. This is helping to go ahead and prepare the follicles. And once the follicles are being matured, once the Graafian follicle is going to get released, it is being released, and now the corpus luteum is being formed. So once the corpus luteum is being formed, so this is with the help of progesterone. So that point of time, progesterone is going to increase. Okay, so this is how the various hormones will work. Also, about the body temperature, the body temperature increases during the ovulation period. Okay, from the ovulation period till menstruation, the body temperature, hence we would feel like as if, there's a feverish matter or, not feeling well, uneasiness, the body temperature would increase. Okay, so that is happening. So here, giving you a gist of whatever I talked in the menstrual cycle, you find how endometrium is increasing slowly, how estrogen and progesterone are working, the ovarian events that are happening, and the pituitary hormones that are working. Okay, so this is how it is going to work. So the pituitary hormones, is there, it is going to produce, it is going to, at first, what happens is the gonadotrophin releasing hormone, they are going to act on the pituitary glands, and then this pituitary glands is going to release hormone FSH into the ovary for the follicles formation that is happening till maturation. So once this follicle formation happens and the follicles are matured, what will happen? It will give a signal and it will say to reduce the production of FSH and LH. So once the production of FSH and LH is reduced, so FSH production is really reduced, and now LH production will increase. So once LH production increases, what happens? The Graafian follicle will rupture. So ovulation has taken place. Once the ovulation has taken place, it will say that now corpus luteum is to be produced. Once corpus luteum is produced, it will give a signal to produce progesterone. Okay, so now progesterone, LH will slow down, and then after that progesterone is being produced. So progesterone will be produced. This progesterone will work on the uterus to thicken, get it prepared for the baby. And then after that, degeneration will take place, that is menstruation. So estrogen and progesterone levels will fall, leading to menstruation. So finally, we have given you the diagram of the uterus, how it is happening, the menstrual phase, follicular phase, my uterus is getting ready, thickening, ovulation is happening, and luteal phase. And again, the cycle repeats itself after every 28 days. All right. So the next thing that we will discuss to you is about fertilization and implantation. Till then, thank you.